I can feel the blood soaking through my uniform, where Jackson's weight presses against my shoulders. 19 miles. That's what the GPS said before it died 3 hours ago. 19 miles through these Afghan mountains with 190 pounds of dying friend on my back, and I can already hear them. The Taliban scouts are close, their voices bouncing off the canyon walls like death itself is calling my name. My legs stopped feeling like legs somewhere around mile 7. Now they're just meat and bone and stubbornness, each step a negotiation with gravity and willpower. Jackson's breathing rattles in my ear, wet and wrong, and I know that sound. I heard it when Rodriguez died in my arms in Helmand. I heard it when Martinez didn't make it off the chopper in Kandahar. It's the sound of a body giving up, of lungs filling with blood, of time running out. But here's what nobody tells you about carrying someone 19 miles through enemy territory. It's not about strength. I'm not strong. I'm 5'9", 160 pounds soaking wet, a computer tech from Ohio who barely passed the physical requirements. This isn't about muscle. It's about something else entirely, something I discovered at mile 4 when every fiber of my being screamed to stop. There's a rhythm to it, a counting method I invented out of pure desperation that tricks your brain into thinking you can take just one more step. Always just one more. Count to 4, breathe. Count to 4, step. Count to 4, live. But that rhythm is breaking now. I can hear them getting closer. I can see the sun dropping toward the ridge, and once it gets dark in these mountains, we're dead. Jackson mumbles something about his daughter, 3 years old, birthday next week. I was supposed to help him pick out a present at the bazaar. Instead, I'm trying to keep him breathing long enough to see her again, trying to keep us both alive in a situation where survival stopped being likely about 12 miles ago. My boots are filled with blood. Mine or his, I can't tell anymore. Every breath tastes like copper and dust. And I still have 7 miles to go. 7 miles to the rally point where maybe, just maybe, someone is waiting. 7 miles to prove that sometimes the weakest soldier can do the impossible. 7 miles to save both our lives, in ways I don't even understand yet. If my story resonates with you, please hit the like button to bring a little light to this father's heart. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss my upcoming life stories, and tell me in the comments where you're watching this video from and what time it is there right now. It makes me so happy to know what corner of the country or world you're listening from. They told me I couldn't do it. The battalion commander, the medics, hell, even Jackson himself whispered it through bloody teeth when I first hoisted him up. "Leave me, Danny, you'll die trying." But I'm Specialist Daniel Cooper from Akron, Ohio, and I've spent my entire life being told what I can't do. Can't make the basketball team, can't get into a good college, can't handle infantry school, can't survive deployment. And you know what? They were right about most of it. I did wash out of infantry. They did reassign me to communications tech because I couldn't handle the physical demands. I was the guy who fixed radios while real soldiers did real soldier things. I was okay with that. I never wanted to be a hero. I just wanted to serve my country, get my benefits, maybe figure out who I was in the process. But on September 14th, 2011, in the Kunar province of Afghanistan, none of that mattered anymore. What mattered was Jackson, Staff Sergeant Marcus Jackson from Detroit, the only soldier in our unit who treated me like I belonged, bleeding out from shrapnel wounds in his chest and abdomen, and me, the weakest link in the chain, suddenly the only thing standing between him and death. Our patrol had been ambushed. We'd been separated from the unit, no radio contact, no extraction possible. Just me, Jackson, and 19 miles of hostile territory between us and safety. Everyone knows you can't carry a full-grown man 19 miles through mountains. It's physically impossible. The Army manuals say 3 miles is the maximum for a casualty carry under ideal conditions. This wasn't ideal, this was a nightmare, but I had something those manuals didn't account for. I had a technique, a mental modification I developed during our worst training runs, a way of breaking the impossible into the possible, one tiny increment at a time, and over the next 27 hours, that technique would save both our lives in ways I never imagined. I need to go back 6 months to explain how I ended up in those mountains. Akron didn't prepare me for Afghanistan. Nothing prepares you for Afghanistan, but especially not a childhood spent indoors, playing video games, avoiding sports because I was always the smallest kid. My dad was career Army, fought in Desert Storm, and I think he was disappointed when I turned out more like my mum, quiet, bookish, better with computers than weapons. But after high school, after 2 years of community college going nowhere, I enlisted, not to prove anything, just because I didn't know what else to do with my life. Basic training almost killed me. I couldn't do the runs. I couldn't handle the rucksack marches. My drill sergeant called me Cooper the Drooper because I was always at the back of the formation, always struggling. They pushed me into communications, said I had a knack for the technical stuff, said not everyone needs to be infantry. I was relieved. Let the big guys carry the guns. I'd carry the radios. Then I met Jackson. He was running punishment laps one evening. He'd gotten into it with a lieutenant over some tactical decision, and I was out there too, trying to build up my endurance on my own time, trying not to be such a failure. He lapped me 3 times before he slowed down to jog beside me. "You run like you're carrying the weight of the world, Cooper," he said. "That's because I am," I gasped. "Then you're doing it wrong. Stop thinking about the end. Stop thinking about the mile. Just think about the next breath, just the next one. Then the next step, just one. Nothing else exists except what's right in front of you." It sounded like fortune cookie wisdom. But that night, it kept me going. I finished those laps. And when we deployed to Kunar province together, him leading a squad, me maintaining communications equipment, that advice lived in my head. Just the next breath, just the next step. I didn't know then that it would become my survival mantra. Our firebase was at the edge of hell. Forward operating base Keating, nested in a valley surrounded by mountains that gave the Taliban perfect firing positions. We got attacked constantly. Rockets at dawn, small arms fire at dusk. I spent most of my time in the communications tent, making sure our radios stayed functional, that we could call for air support, for medivacs, for anything that might keep us alive another day. I was good at my job. I could fix a radio under fire. I could troubleshoot in the dark, but I couldn't fight. Not really. When contact happened, I'd grab my rifle and try not to shake too visibly. The other soldiers knew it. They didn't give me grief, exactly, but I wasn't one of them. Except Jackson. Jackson treated me like I mattered. He'd come by the comm tent, bring me coffee, ask me about home. He showed me pictures of his daughter, Riley. 3 years old with pigtails and a smile that could melt steel. "She's why I'm careful out there," he told me once. "Every risk I take, I think about her. Every mission, I'm counting down to the day I can hold her again." I didn't have anyone waiting for me like that. My dad and I barely spoke. My mom tried, but I never knew what to say. So I lived vicariously through Jackson's stories, through his certainty that he had something worth coming home for. On September 13th, Jackson's squad was tasked with a routine patrol. Routine in Afghanistan, which means nothing is routine. They needed a communications specialist to come along, test some new equipment in the field. I volunteered. I always volunteered for Jackson's patrols. I felt safer with him, even though statistically I was walking into more danger. We left the wire at 0600, 12 soldiers moving through terrain that looked like God had crumpled paper and called it landscape. Steep valleys, rocky outcroppings, scattered villages that might be friendly or might be Taliban depending on which way the wind blew. The equipment worked fine. I was actually thinking we might make it back without incident. Then, at 1400 hours, the world exploded. The ambush was textbook Taliban. They let us enter a narrow valley, waited until we were deep in their kill zone, then opened up from 3 sides. RPGs from the high ground, small arms fire from concealed positions. Our squad scattered, trying to find cover where there was none. I hit the dirt behind a boulder that wasn't nearly big enough, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold my rifle. Training kicked in. Suppressive fire, call for backup, try not to die. But the radio was screaming with traffic, everyone calling for help at once, and I knew air support was minutes away at best. Minutes we didn't have. I saw Corporal Williams go down first, shot through the leg. Then PFC Martinez took one in the shoulder. Jackson was moving through the chaos like he'd done this 1,000 times, directing fire, pulling wounded soldiers to cover, yelling coordinates into his radio. And then I saw it happen. The RPG hit 3 feet from where Jackson was crouched. The explosion lifted him off his feet and slammed him into the rocks. For a second, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Then my legs were running before my brain caught up, sprinting across open ground, while bullets kicked up dust around me, sliding in next to Jackson's limp body. His chest was a mess of blood and torn fabric. Shrapnel had torn through his vest, through the flesh underneath. His eyes were open but unfocused, his breath coming in short gasps. "Danny," he managed, "get out of here." "Not happening, Sergeant." My hands were working on their own, ripping open his medical kit, trying to remember my combat lifesaver training. Pressure on the wounds, but there were so many wounds. The firefight intensified. I heard Lieutenant Ramirez shouting orders, heard the beautiful roar of Apache helicopters incoming. The Taliban were pulling back, disappearing into the mountains like ghosts. But as the dust settled and I looked around, my heart dropped. We'd gotten separated from the squad during the chaos. Jackson and I were on the wrong side of the valley, cut off by Taliban fighters, now regrouping between us and our unit. Lieutenant Ramirez's voice crackled over the radio. "Cooper, what's your position?" I gave him the coordinates, watched his face fall even through the static. "Danny, you're 2 clicks north of us. We can't reach you. Taliban's got the whole valley locked down. Can Jackson move?" I looked at Jackson. His eyes were closing. His breathing was getting shallow. "Negative, sir. He needs immediate medevac." Silence on the other end. Then, "Birds can't land in your position. Too hot. You need to move to Rally Point Delta. That's..." His voice was careful, too careful. "That's 19 miles northeast. There's a clearing there where we can extract you." 19 miles. I looked at Jackson, at the blood still seeping through the bandages I'd applied. 19 miles might as well have been 19,000. "Roger that, sir," I heard myself say. Moving to Rally Point Delta. I've thought about that moment every day since. The moment I decided to try. The moment I chose impossible over inevitable. I should have known better. I did know better. You don't carry a 190-pound man 19 miles through hostile mountains. You especially don't do it when you're 5'9" and 160 pounds yourself, when you barely pass the fitness requirements, when your own unit jokes about your weakness. But I looked at Jackson's face, thought about Riley waiting at home for her daddy, and I knew I couldn't leave him. Wouldn't leave him. I rigged a makeshift harness from our gear straps, positioning Jackson on my back in a modified fireman's carry that distributed his weight across my shoulders and hips. Every manual says you can't maintain this position for more than a few hundred meters. Every expert will tell you it's impossible. But I had my technique, the one Jackson himself had taught me. Don't think about the end. Don't think about the miles, just the next breath, just the next step. I started walking at 1500 hours, the afternoon sun baking the valley floor. The first mile was adrenaline. My body hadn't realized yet what I was asking it to do. I focused on my breathing, on my counting. 4 breaths, 4 steps, 4 breaths, 4 steps. A rhythm that occupied my entire brain, leaving no room for doubt or fear, or the voice screaming that this was impossible. Jackson was semi-conscious, murmuring incoherently. I kept talking to him, kept him engaged. "Stay with me, Marcus, stay with me. Tell me about Riley. What's her favorite color?" "Pink," he whispered. "Everything. Pink." "Okay, we're going to get you home to buy her something pink. Something really pink. The pinkest thing in the store." 4 breaths. 4 steps. Mile 2 was where my body started protesting. My shoulders were burning where the harness dug in, my legs were trembling. But I'd felt this before in training and punishment runs. I knew this pain, I could negotiate with it. The human body is capable of extraordinary things when you break the ask into small enough pieces. I wasn't carrying Jackson 19 miles. I was taking one more step, that's all, just one more. Then one more after that, I could do one more, anyone can do one more. Mile 3 was where I saw them for the first time. Taliban scouts on the ridge above me, 2 of them scanning the valley. I froze, Jackson's weight pressing me down, my legs shaking from exertion and fear. They hadn't seen me yet. I was in the shadow of an outcropping, just another rock in a landscape of rocks. Move and I'm dead. Stay still and Jackson dies. 4 breaths. I counted them silently, forcing my heart rate down, forcing my hands to stop shaking. When the scouts moved on, I waited another 200 count before moving. This became the new pattern. Walk during the moments between Taliban patrols. Hide when voices echoed off the canyon walls. The terrain was destroying me. This wasn't the flat training grounds of Fort Benning. This was 40-degree slopes, loose scree that slid under my boots, rocks that twisted my ankles with every step. And I was climbing, always climbing. The rally point was higher in elevation, which meant every step was uphill, every breath thinner than the last. By mile 5, I'd stopped feeling my shoulders. That was a mercy. The pain had been so intense it had just stopped, shut down. My body's way of protecting my brain from the truth of what I was doing to it. Jackson was getting worse. His breathing was more labored, his skin cold despite the heat. I'd stopped twice to check his wounds, to inject him with morphine from his med kit, to whisper lies about how close we were to rescue. I wasn't tracking time anymore, wasn't tracking distance, just counting. 4 and 4 and 4 and 4, an endless loop that was the only thing keeping my legs moving. The sun was setting when I reached mile 7, painting the mountains in shades of blood red that felt too appropriate. Night in these mountains meant temperatures would drop 40 degrees, meant I wouldn't be able to see Taliban positions, meant every step became a potential fall off a cliff I couldn't see, but it also meant cover. Darkness hides the prey as much as the hunter. I kept moving. Somewhere around mile 8, my brain started playing tricks on me. I saw my dad standing on a ridge, disappointed as always, saw my drill sergeant laughing, saw Riley, Jackson's daughter, though I'd never met her, asking me where her daddy was. Hallucinations, dehydration and exhaustion and pain manifesting as ghosts. I recognized them for what they were, but that didn't make them less real in the moment. "Danny," Jackson's voice, clearer than it had been in hours. "You need to leave me." "Not happening. I'm dead weight, I'm getting you killed." "Then we die together, Marcus. I'm not leaving you for Riley to grow up without a father because I was too weak to carry you. I'm done being too weak." 4 breaths, 4 steps. Mile 10 was midnight. I knew because I could see stars overhead, bright and cold, and indifferent to the struggle happening below them. My legs had stopped being legs hours ago. They were autonomous machines, operating on some level below conscious thought. The rhythm had taken over completely. I was the rhythm, 4 and 4 and 4 and 4. Nothing else existed. Jackson had stopped talking. His breathing was so shallow I had to stop every few minutes to check if he was still alive. My fingers pressed to his neck, searching for a pulse that was getting weaker. I should have stopped, should have found shelter, tried to stabilize him, waited for dawn. But I knew, some instinct deeper than logic told me, that stopping meant dying, not from Taliban, from time, from blood loss, from cold. Movement was life. So I moved. I fell at mile 11, stepped wrong in the darkness. My ankle rolled, and I went down hard with Jackson's weight crushing me into the rocks. For maybe 30 seconds I couldn't get up, couldn't breathe, couldn't find the will to push his weight off me and stand again. This is where it ends, I thought. This is where I die. Then I heard voices. Taliban fighters, close, their flashlights sweeping across the terrain. They'd heard me fall. I forced myself up, dragging Jackson into the shadow of a boulder, my hand clamped over his mouth to muffle any sound. We weren't hidden. Not really. If they looked directly at us, we were dead. The flashlights came closer. I could see their faces, young men with AK-47s, talking in Pashto about something that might have been us, or might have been anything. My hand was on my sidearm. If they found us, I'd go down shooting. At least Jackson wouldn't be captured alive. The lights swept past our position, swept back, stopped 3 feet from where we huddled. One of the Taliban fighters said something, laughed. They were looking right at us, but they weren't seeing us. The shadows, the rocks, the sheer audacity of someone being stupid enough to hide right there. It made us invisible. They moved on. I waited 1,000 count before moving again. Mile 12 was climbing. The terrain got steeper, rockier. I was using my hands as much as my feet, scrambling up slopes while Jackson's weight tried to drag me backward. Twice I nearly fell off edges I couldn't see. Once I did fall, sliding 20 feet down a scree field before catching myself, Jackson's body absorbing most of the impact. He groaned but didn't wake. I checked his pulse again. Still there. Weaker. 4 breaths. 4 steps. Get up. Climb again. The dawn of September 15th found me at mile 15, and I was hallucinating hard now. I saw my mum on the trail ahead, waving at me. Saw my old high school, transported somehow to these mountains. Saw Jackson walking beside me, healthy and whole, asking me why I looked so tired. The rational part of my brain, the small part still functioning, knew I was in trouble, knew I was shutting down, but that part was getting smaller, quieter, drowned out by the rhythm. 4 and 4 and 4. Jackson woke up around dawn, lucid for the first time in hours. "Danny," he whispered, "we're not going to make it. 4 miles to go. We're making it. Even if we do, I'm dead anyway, lost too much blood. Felt it. You're not dying, Marcus. Promise me something. Anything. Riley, tell her. Tell her Daddy tried. Tell her I thought about her. You're going to tell her yourself. 4 miles, that's all. I've carried you 15. What's 4 more?" He tried to laugh but coughed blood instead. I gave him more morphine, the last of our supply, and kept walking. Mile 16 was where I started falling apart, literally. My left boot had rubbed my heel raw hours ago, and now with each step I could feel flesh tearing, blood squelching. My right shoulder had gone completely numb, which terrified me more than pain would have. Nerves dying, permanent damage. I didn't care. 4 more miles. I could do 4 more miles. I could do anything for 4 miles. The Taliban found us again at mile 17. I heard the trucks before I saw them, heard the voices organizing a search pattern. They knew someone was out here. Maybe they'd found our tracks. Maybe they'd just decided to sweep the area. Didn't matter. I couldn't outrun trucks. I found a dried riverbed, followed it into a narrow canyon barely wide enough for my shoulders with Jackson on my back. The voices got closer, engines revving. I pressed myself against the canyon wall, Jackson's blood dripping onto the rocks below us, and I prayed for the first time since I was a child, prayed to a God I wasn't sure I believed in. Not for me, for Jackson, for Riley, for 1 more mile, just 1 more. The trucks passed above us, voices faded. I emerged from the canyon and kept walking. Mile 18 was the longest of my life. I could see the rally point now, a clearing marked on my GPS, which had miraculously come back to life with just enough battery to show me I was close. So close, but my body was done. Finished. Every step was a conscious decision, a battle between will and physiology. My vision was tunneling, narrowing to just the ground in front of me. My heart was doing things hearts shouldn't do, skipping beats, racing, then slowing dangerously. I was dying. Not as fast as Jackson, but dying nonetheless. Some part of me understood that I'd pushed too far, damaged something fundamental. But we were close, so close. I thought about every person who'd told me I couldn't. Thought about every time I'd been the weak one, the failure, the disappointment. Thought about Jackson treating me like I mattered when no one else did. Thought about Riley never knowing her father. And I kept walking. 4 breaths, 4 steps, 1 more. Just 1 more. Mile 19 began at 1000 hours on September 15th, 31 hours after I'd started carrying Jackson. I could see the clearing ahead, see the Black Hawk helicopter waiting, see soldiers running toward me. I tried to shout, but nothing came out. Tried to wave, but my arms wouldn't move, just kept walking. 4 and 4 and 4. The medics reached me 50 meters from the helicopter. They were yelling, trying to take Jackson off my back, but my muscles had locked. Literally locked. They had to cut the harness to get him off me, and when his weight finally lifted, I collapsed. Couldn't feel my legs anymore, couldn't feel anything. Heard the medics shouting medical jargon, heard the helicopter spooling up, felt hands on me, checking vitals, starting IVs. Someone was yelling that I was hypothermic, that my core temperature was dangerously low, that I was in shock. Someone else was working on Jackson, shouting about getting him stable for transport. I tried to ask if he was alive, but my mouth wouldn't work. The last thing I heard before I passed out was one of the medics saying, "How the hell did this kid carry him 19 miles? Then darkness. I woke up in Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany 3 days later. My body had been through trauma, severe muscle damage, nerve damage in my shoulders, 4 broken toes, torn ligaments in both knees, hypothermia, dehydration, and something called rhabdomyolysis, where my muscles had literally started breaking down and releasing proteins that nearly destroyed my kidneys. The doctors told me I'd pushed far beyond what the human body is designed to handle, told me I'd be in physical therapy for months, told me I was lucky to be alive. I didn't feel lucky. I felt like failure because the first thing I asked was about Jackson, and there was a pause before anyone answered. That pause where medical staff decide how to deliver bad news. But then a nurse smiled. Staff Sergeant Jackson is alive, critical but stable. They think he'll make it. I cried then, sobbed like a child, all the fear and pain and exhaustion of those 31 hours pouring out at once. Jackson lived. That's all that mattered. But there was more to the story, something I didn't learn until weeks later when Jackson was strong enough to visit my hospital room. He rolled in via wheelchair, still pale, still healing, but alive. Gloriously alive. "Danny," he said, "they told me what you did. 19 miles, brother, 19 miles. I wasn't leaving you. That's not what I came to tell you, the doctors. They found something when they were treating you, in your chest, a mass. Probably been there for months, maybe longer." My blood went cold. "Cancer." "No, an arteriovenous malformation, a weak spot in your heart vessels. They said it could have ruptured any time. Instant death. No warning. But the physical exertion, the strain you put your body through, it caused some kind of response. The doctors are still trying to understand it, but basically, carrying me those 19 miles, it forced your body to route blood flow differently. It bought them time to catch it, to treat it. Danny, you saved my life, but walking those 19 miles, it saved yours too." Looking back now, 5 years later, I understand what happened in those mountains. It wasn't about strength. I'm still 5'9", still no physical specimen. It wasn't about heroism. I was terrified every step of the way. It was about refusing to accept the limits everyone else put on me. It was about taking one more step when every step seemed impossible. Jackson and I both medically retired from the Army. He's back in Detroit with Riley, who's 8 now and asks me every time I visit to tell her the story about carrying her daddy. I always tell her, but I change it a little each time, make it less scary, more about love than fear. I'm back in Akron working as a computer tech, going to physical therapy twice a week, learning to live with the permanent damage I did to my body. Sometimes I can barely walk when it rains. Sometimes my shoulders hurt so bad I can't sleep. But I'm alive. Jackson's alive. And I learned something in those mountains that nobody can take from me. The human body is capable of impossible things when you stop thinking about the distance and focus on the next step. Just the next one, that's all it ever is, just one more breath, one more step, one more moment of refusing to quit. I tell this story not because I'm special, but because I'm not. I was the weakest soldier in the unit, the one everyone doubted. And if I could carry a man 19 miles through enemy territory, if I could save 2 lives by refusing to accept the impossible, then anyone can do more than they think. The limit isn't where your body gives out. The limit is where your mind accepts defeat. And in those mountains, with Jackson's life weighing on my shoulders and my own heart literally ticking like a time bomb, I learned that sometimes the only way to survive is to count to 4, take a breath, take a step, and refuse to believe that you can't take just one more.